हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना जमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य शुद्ध श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य शुद्ध श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की। श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की। वृंदावन धाम की। नवदीप मायापुर धाम की। गंगा मैया जमुना मैया की। हरिनाम संकीर्तन की। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि। All glories to the assembled Vaishnavas. All glories to the assembled Vaishnavas. All glories to the assembled Vaishnavas. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, entitled Questions by Vidura, Text 10. Yada pahuto bhagavan bhavanam pravishto. Yada pahuto bhavanam pravishto. Mantraya prushta kila purvajena. Mantraya prushta kila purvajena. Ataha tanmantra drisham variyan. Ataha tanmantra drisham variyan. Yanmantrino vaidurikam vadanti. Yanmantrino vaidurikam vadanti. Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto. Mantraya prishta kila purvajena. Ataha tanmantra drisham variyan. Matajis. Yada pahuto bhavanam pravishto. Mantraya prishta kila purvajena. Atahaktam yan. Yanmantrino vaidurikam. Word to word. Yada, when Upahuta was called by Bhavanam, the palace, Pravishta, entered, Mantraya, for consultation, Prishta, asked by, Kila, of course, Purvajena, by the elder brother, Atha, thus, Aha, said, Tat, that, Mantra, advice, Drisham, just suitable, Variyan, excellent, Yat, that which, Mantrinaha, the minister of state, or expert politicians, Vaidurikam, instructions by Vidura, Vadanti, do they say. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instruction which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known and instruction by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. Purport. Political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert, just as in modern times, Pandit Chanakya is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupa Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpataru Brasha Krupa Sindhu Be'evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So as this verse talks about, Vidurji is has come to give advice. So Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, we see that how advice is so important that in the 10th canto, Lord Shri Krishna is also seeking advice from Uddhava. So when Narada Muni arrives and he talks about, he gives an invitation to the Lord to go come to the Rajasuya Yagya of Yudhishthira Maharaj. And that's the time all the Vrishnis, they were thinking of attacking the kingdom of Jarasandha. So they didn't find the Narad Muni's advice so palatable because they had some agenda. So to mitigate that, Lord Shri Krishna asked for Uddhava's advice. And here, Lord says, Tamvina paramam chakshu suranan mantrartha tattvavit arthartha bruhi anushteyam shraddamaha karavamam tat. So he says, Lord Shri Krishna is saying to the Uddhava, you are indeed our best and closest friend. For you know perfectly the relative value of various kinds of counsels. So like Uddhava is very intelligent, and he counsels on a various subject matters. And he says, further Lord Shri Krishna says, therefore please tell us what should be done in this situation. Shraddha Maha. He says, Lord Shri Krishna is saying, we trust your judgment and we shall do what you say. So that is a confidence Lord Shri Krishna is putting into Uddhavji. So he glorified Uddhava, and Lord is putting faith in his advice and giving confidence, right? So that's what we see, that advice, either we should not give any advice unless it is asked for. Even if, so Lord Shri Krishna, of course, Lord Shri Krishna has wanted to give his dear devotee Uddhava the credit for the solution, and thus he pretended to be perplexed in asking for his advice. But the point we are talking about is, good advice are even sought by Lord Shri Krishna. So in the verse for today, we see Vidurji is also invited for consultation. So when advice was asked for, then only it should be given. And it should be by the trust. We should have, that trust in a relationship to be there, so that we can actually gain a confidence in that advice. And Vidurji here talks about, he's very expert in the field. His advice was well appreciated by different ministers, and he gave with such a exact, to the point, and with a clarity. That's what the advice means. So today we will be talking about how to give advice, or art of giving advice, based upon these three factors of timing, trust, and tact. So, timing, giving advice, timing, what it suggests is when to give the advice. When to give the advice. Vidura didn't come by his own, but he was called by. So, give advice only when asked for. That's what it means, timing. So sages generally don't give advice unless asked for. They refrain from offering any unsolicited advice. Unsolicited advice is like something unasked or unwanted gift. For example, let's say if someone is going to a yatra in Rishikesh or to the Himalayas, and if you go to him with a bag of warm clothings, but he thinks that I'm not going at the very cold places, so I don't need these warm clothes. But you are giving him this bag of warm clothes, he may take it because you are giving, but he will just feel the burden of it. It is not very accepted gift. It is like an unwanted gift, what he is receiving, and he will just feel the burden of it. That's what it means to give unsolicited advice to somebody. The same principle applies for that unsolicited advice when it is unasked for. That's why the advice is always given when it is asked for. So we see in the different section of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Vyasadeva feels very dissatisfied and very anxious, despite he has written so many Vedas and Puranas, after having such a monumental work in the literature and such accomplishments, but he's feeling that despondency, he's feeling that dissatisfaction within himself. And that's the time when Narad Muni also arrives on the scene. His arrival is very significant because Narad Muni very well know what is the cause of his despondency. Though he knew the cause of his despondency, but he didn't start advising to Vyasadeva. But only when Vyasadeva submissively inquires what is the cause of this dissatisfaction, he glorifies the position of Narad Muni. He says, everything is known to you, Narad Muni. Everything of this material world and the spiritual world. You have unlimited knowledge. You can travel everywhere as like a super soul. You are all pervading. That means nothing is unknown to you. And then he humbly inquires to Narad Muni and says, so what is the cause of this? Can you mitigate this dissatisfaction? Can you give me the solution? Although Vyasadeva is very learned, he is an empowered incarnation of the Lord, but still he puts up his humble position in front of his spiritual master Narad Muni and inquires. And that's when Narad Muni starts giving advice to him, and then he asks him to write and broadcast the pure literature, the sublime literature of Srimad Bhagavatam, which will glorify the position of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we see, until Vyasadeva inquires, Narad Muni doesn't start giving advice. Another instance, here in the third canto, Mother Devahuti, now who is Devahuti? Devahuti is the daughter of a great emperor, educated, very cultural, and she got a husband, Kardaba Muni, who is a saintly personality and a great devotee. But now that Kardaba Muni is living, so that time she is regretting and lamenting that she didn't seek for a liberation from such a great devotee, Kardaba Muni, and she got entangled so much into the material things. So she regretted. She says, I used you only for my sense gratification, O Kardaba Muni, and I enjoyed at different places, didn't utilize your glorious position, glorious association for perfecting my life. And that's where she was feeling a deep regret. Kardaba Muni consoles her and says, do not worry, the Supreme Lord will appear as your son. And Lord Kapila Dev appears as a son And when when Lord Kapila appears, then she starts inquiring. She says, Tvantva gataham sharanam sharanyam. She says, shelter of your lotus feet, because you are only person from whom to take shelter. You are the, basically nobody else than you. She further says, Swabhritya samsara taro kutaram. She says, you are the axe which can cut all the tree of material existence. And further says, Jidnyansa aham prakrute purushasya. Now she is saying, Jidnyansa aham. I am inquiring to you about Prakriti and Purusha. I am inquiring to you about matter and spirit. Namami saddharma vidam varishtham. So she is saying, saddharma, eternal occupation. Please. And she puts up this submissively this inquiries to Kapil Dev. She asks us different 7 topics. And first it starts with the, please dispel my illusions. And then Kapil Muni, as we know, he elaborately talks about, give the teachings about the science of devotional service. So further we see, so the point we are saying is, where until Devahuti submissively inquires, Kapil Dev doesn't speak. Same we see in Bhagavad Gita. Gita starts with the Arjuna's lamentation. And after the lamentation, what followed is the message of Bhagavad Gita. But Krishna doesn't start speaking Gita straight away, seeing the condition of Arjuna. Rather, Krishna actually refuses to give any systematic advice to Arjuna. And that's why, Arjuna is declaring that he won't fight. So, Arjuna is finding himself in a more perplexed situation, more confused situation. And that's where he says, in Bhagavad Gita 2.7, he says, Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava pruchhami tvam dharma sammuda cheta yashreyasyanne shitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham sadhimam tvam prapannam. He says, I am inquiring to you about dharma, the duty to be performed. So, people sometimes say that, okay, the message of Bhagavad Gita, we should not take it very seriously because it was a situation, based upon some situation this Gita was spoken. This was just a pep talk, a motivational talk, because Arjuna was very dejected. Just to cheer him up, this talk was given. So it is not applicable for everybody. And most of times the pep talks which are given in the world history or in the politics history, we see it is inciting a lot of anger against the other party, a lot of revengeful attitude. That's most of the time pep talks are. But did Krishna talk about any of these things in Bhagavad Gita? No. There was no talk on how to strategize to win the war. There was no guidelines how to fight this war. But it was about dharma. Pruchhami tvam dharma sammuda cheta. Krishna delivers the message of Bhagavad Gita. So, until Arjuna asks, Krishna doesn't start speaking. Krishna just waits. So he is very patient with Arjuna. Let Arjuna inquire. Let Arjuna surrender. And Acharyas gives a commentary that when he asking for advice, Krishna may say, okay, probably you can solve it by your own. But Arjuna again reiterates in 2.8 that please advise me. I'm fully surrendering unto you. He moves from the relationship of friendship to the Guru. And that's where Lord Shri Krishna speaks about this great talk that is known as Bhagavad Gita. Same we say in Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj, after the Kurukshetra war, he was feeling very devastated to see the crores of dead bodies lying in the battlefield. That mere thought that so many people have been killed, it is haunting him. So he could not be pacified by anyone. And that's when Lord Shri Krishna advised him to go to the Bhishma Dev and express his feeling. Yudhishthira Maharaj, along with all his associates, they go to the Bhishma Dev, who is lying on the bed of arrows. And that's where Yudhishthira Maharaj was enlightened by Bhishma Dev. So until Yudhishthira Maharaj moves towards Bhishma Dev doesn't start speaking, doesn't start giving any advice. Bhishma Dev speaks to him and gives such a wonderful teachings of what is the duty of an emperor is, what are the different nitis he should be following. So these valuable instructions how to rule that Bharatvarsha didn't come of its own, but unless Yudhishthira Maharaj goes, right? So the advice, the point we are saying is advice has to be given when asked for. That's where it has a value. So this example emphasizes the idea that advice is most impactful when it is requested. So we see, again we are on the timing, when can you give advice? So other time we should give the advice is when you have an authority or you have expertise in that field. That's the time we should give advice. Otherwise, in the discussion, somebody doesn't know even allopathy and Ayurveda, but they start speaking and they start debating which is better than the other. So only when somebody is an authority or an expertise, he should start speaking. So somebody who is in a responsible position, such as parents or teacher, they can straightforward speak the truth. Prabhupada mentions into the purport of austerity of speech in Bhagavad Gita, he says, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. So, as mentioned, Lord Shri Krishna is also seeking the advice from Uddhava. Who is Uddhava? Uddhava is very expert. So the verse says, Vrishtinam pravaro mantri Krishnaya daita sakha shishyo brahaspater sakshat Uddhavo buddhi sattama. Who is Uddhava? He is the best advisor among Vrishni. What makes him a best advisor? Pravaro mantri. Because he is a supremely intelligent, buddhi sattama. So he is a supremely intelligent. More on that is, he is graduated from BI, Brahaspati Institute. He is a Shishya of Brahaspati. And he is a dearmost friend of Krishna, Daita Sakha. And he is exclusively surrendered to Krishna, Ekanta Bhakta. And that's why he has an expertise, and that's how he can counsel Lord Shri Krishna. That's why he goes and asks for the counsel of Uddhava. So when one is expertise, that's when he should advise. So this is about timing, when to give advice. The next facet is a trust. So there should be trust in a relationship, otherwise the advice will not be taken very seriously. So how do we build the trust? Empathy actually wins the trust of others. Before advising, one should understand the situation of others. When one walks into the other's shoes, then he can understand their situations better. And then he can win over the trust. And then the better advice can be crafted. So that's why empathy is very important. Before giving advice, we should build that trust. That empathy can build the trust. We see Draupadi, how she was empathizing. So to truly understand the person, what the pain he's undergoing, you must know what likely that pain is. Draupadi, she's such a noble lady, she says, expressing that empathy, when Ashwathama slaughtered her children and he was to be punished by Arjuna, that time she says, my lord, do not make the wife of Dronacharya cry like me. I am aggrieved for the death of my sons. She need not cry constantly like me. She is empathizing. So such a noble lady as Draupadi, she is empathizing. So we can understand from this that exalted behavior of such a great devotees, to understand the pain of other person, we should not just walk into their shoes, but we should walk a mile, and then we can understand. So other times, in a Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is saying, Chanchalahi mana Krishna pramati balvat tradam, tasyaham nigraham manne vayureva sudushkram. Oh Krishna, the mind is such a restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna, how can I subdue it? I can control the wind, I can control the storms, but I am not able to control this mind. So the mind is such a worst of our enemy. So Arjuna is comparing that to the I can control the wind, but I cannot control. I can control this tornadoes, cyclones, but I cannot. See, any kind of modern technologies we have, but we cannot control the tornadoes or cyclone. We just have one solution: back it, run away from that. There is no other way. There is no other solution. But Arjuna can control. But he's saying, I am not able to control the mind. You know, when sometimes the student expresses some tough problem, faces some tough problem, and is not able to solve, a sadist teacher, he takes a lot of pleasure into it. Right? He takes a lot of pleasure. This assignment is not working for you. Right? But Krishna is not like that. Krishna says, Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraha chalam. I understand, Arjuna. Undoubtedly, it is very difficult. It is very difficult. He empathizes with Arjuna that what the problem you are facing is really, the mind is really very turbulent, it's very difficult to control. However, it is not impossible. And he hints at a solution. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha griyate. So, we need empathy. We need to come down to their level to put ourselves into their shoes and understand their perspective. Here Krishna didn't start judging Arjuna that you cannot solve this problem, you cannot control this mind. He didn't judge him, right? So non-judgmentalism comes along with that empathy. So Krishna didn't judge Arjuna, rather he was empathizing with Arjuna. So that empathy is very important in building a trust. Another point in building up a trust is giving your own account. An example of yourself so that it will inspire the other party, so that it can build some trust. Like here in Narad Muni is instructing to the Vyasdev, and he starts saying that you are a transcendental author. Please write the pure literature, pure spiritual literature glorifying Krishna, and he emphasized this glorification of Krishna repeatedly. But how will this advice work? And that's where Narad Muni starts speaking about his own account. He starts speaking about how bhakti helped him to become a pure devotee and come into such a spiritual body. He speaks about in a previous day of Brahma, when his mother was a maid and she was just maintaining him. That's the time when the Bhakti Vedantis come and there was an opportunity to serve them. Narad Muni was serving along with the mother to these Bhakti Vedantis. And he used to hear from them, he used to take the remnants from them, and he was serving them. That Sadhu Sangha actually transformed, that Bhakti Sangha actually transformed his heart. And giving his own example, how this Bhakti actually transformed, he gives an inspiration to Vyasadeva to write such a pure literature, to write such a pure Bhakti literature as a Srimad Bhagavatam. So giving your own example and account will build up that trust. And then the advice can be taken so seriously. We see the same factor, about building a trust. It is very much talked about into the in the books, in the modern books also. It is called as an emotional bank account. So emotional bank account is how much you are investing into one person's emotions. So if you have a good balance in others, then you are in a good position to give the advice. But if you are in a deficit, that advice may be backfired. Right? Vidura has a very long-lasting relationship with the Dhritarashtra, and that's why he is in a position to give some advice to Dhritarashtra. So this is about trust. So timing, trust. And the next factor, next consideration is a tact. Tact or consideration for giving advice. So what comes first is a art of listening. So the first consideration we should have is we should hear them properly. So we see in Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, nothing was spoken. Bhagavad Gita consists of 18 chapters, but the first chapter was nothing was spoken. Krishna patiently hears what Arjuna has to say. So, who is Krishna? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If at all somebody has an answer for anything, is Lord Shri Krishna. And Lord Shri Krishna could have straightforwardly spoken about what is the problem and what is the solution. Because Lord Shri, what he is, he knows everything. Vedam samatitani vartamanani cha Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kashana. He knows everything. He knows the future, he knows the present, he knows the past. He could have said, I know the future. You don't need to cry now. Stop crying these things and just do. Just do it. Just do your duty. But Krishna allows Arjuna to speak, to pour his heart, and he patiently is hearing. Most of the times, people they don't need actually advice. They just need somebody to listen to. They want somebody who can listen to them, and when somebody listens to them, half the issue is over, right? And the solution can cover up the half. So, art of listening is not so easy. So many times my friends also, they tell me that how we should actually use this art of listening, how we should imbibe this art of listening. And I'm very poor at this. Maybe I will build up by your blessings. So, but at the same time, one should know that there is some limit for everything. So sometimes people come and they have no intention of following any advice or doing anything, but they just want to talk and talk and talk. When you see there is no point in going ahead with such discussions. So you have to take some different strategies. I'll give an example. There was one boy who used to come for the prerna, and he used to be talking to so many preachers and the temple devotees, and used to speak about the same issue with a very great details and speaking, but he had no interest in hearing the advice, and the following that advice is far out. So later we came to know that from his friends that he just want to build up the connection. That's why he's going and speaking to so many people. Then as we understood his needs, so we started doing just the needful with him. So we should understand, there is a limit for everything, and we should do the needful things. But art of listening is really a wonderful art or a habit we can imbibe. So another thing is, yes, the advice should be crafted, or the tact or consideration while you craft the advice should be based upon time, place and circumstances. And the best example here is when Narad Muni counsels to so many different varieties of people. So in Narad Muni's counseling group, there are very different personalities, varieties of personalities. He has a Harishravas. For him, he used a riddle, and he advised to that riddle. For Murgari, riddle will not work. That's why he showed him some special effect. He showed what will be his outcome of his life if he continue to engage into half-killing animals. And for Prachini Bihari, it was the ego of king who, understanding that ego of king, understanding that situation, without directly saying him any advice that you are in Maya, you have to come out of it, he used a fiction story of Puranjan to actually, it was speaking about him. And then he realizes and corrects himself, take that advice. For Vyasdev, who is a learned scholar, he spoke about his own biography, and that's how he advised. For Valmiki, he uses his family members, and he asked him what reactions they will undergo. Are they ready for it? And that's how he forced him to go into that reflection, and then gave him advice. For Chitraketu, he used his son because he was so much attached to his son. And that's how Narad Muni counsels differently. And now we are celebrating Damodar month. In the Damodar month, when Lord Shri Krishna with that Ukhal, he goes and delivers Nalakubera and Manigriva. So who are these Nalakubera and Manigriva? They are the spoiled brat of a rich father. They were so intoxicated. So when Narad Muni meets them, how he deals with them? He gives him a very heavy curse. As they were not into their senses, he says them that they will become a tree. But Narad Muni, the curse he gave is actually a compassion. That curse is actually turns into compassion, because they become tree into the Nanda Maharaj's courtyard, where they can see that wonderful pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna, and Lord Shri Krishna personally delivers them. So they get a favor of Lord Shri Krishna. So, as per, a wonderful doctor, he administers the same medicine according to the time, place and circumstances, depending upon the patient. And that's how the Narad Muni, he is a great doctor. According to the time, place and circumstances, he gives that advice. So we see also Srila Prabhupada, he used so much time, place and circumstances to preach, to pass on the message to the others. And the early days when there were so many hippies, so they were taking so many drugs and LSD. See, he used the LSD effect to make them understand what the Vaikuntha is, what the realm of Vaikuntha is. So he said Vaikuntha is like an ocean of LSD, so that they can relate to, going beyond the senses. So yes, the message should be crafted as a time, place and circumstances. And other consideration for giving advice is out of genuine concern. When you see the consequences are so serious, to prevent that harm, you can give the advice. Sometimes offering advice becomes very necessary when person's current situation or action leads to a very significant harm or a danger. So that time we need to give advice. That's the time we have to carve out that advice, to be very tactful in giving that advice. That's what Vidura, that's where Vidura, actually he didn't speak so much directly so far, but now he understands the situation is very grave, and that's where he speaks this advice. We see same in a Prahlad Maharaj, when he's advising to his classmates. In the school of Shanda and Amarka, there were children of all the demons, and they were getting trained into becoming a future demons and absorbed into the material pleasures and pursuits. So Prahlad Maharaj, out of genuine concern for his classmates, he started advising his classmates, explaining that true happiness actually lies in a devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we should not delay it. Kaumaram acharat pragya. Dharman Bhagavatam here. So start engaging into devotional service. Start from your childhood itself. Don't miss upon such a durlabh opportunity, the human form of life. So this was out of a genuine concern of Prahlad Maharaj. And same, Prabhupada in those verses, Prabhupada mentions, therefore, as Krishna is always compassionate to the fallen soul, his servants, the devotees of Lord Shri Krishna, are also interested in educating the entire populace in Krishna consciousness. Out of compassion, however, such devotees preach the gospel of Bhagavad Gita all over the world. So out of genuine compassion, somebody can speak. So we became the instrument of compassion, which is actually coming from Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna and Acharyas, and we propagate this message. That should be our mood. That should be our mood to preach and giving advice to somebody. Another consideration we can understand, tact we can understand, is speak, recite from the scriptures. Bhagavad Gita says, Anudvegam karam vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva vangmaya tapa uchyate. It says about you should speak from the realization of scripture. Swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva. You should speak from the realization from the scriptures. Sometimes when giving advice, we give a lot of practicality and a lot of mundane terms comes out. But our advice our counsel should be, when we are speaking to some counseling, or when we are doing a mentoring, our advice should be practical, yes, but at the same time, there should be something from the scriptures which can elevate his consciousness. So that's also important. So in the advice, we should have recitation of scriptures, swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva. And of all this, what we need is actually the last element. What we have for the discussion is a prayer. In the tact, we should have a prayer. While we may apply any amount of techniques, but a genuine advice has to be accompanied by the prayers. Prayers that, oh Lord, give me a proper intelligence so that my advice, what the words I'm coming out, that should be in line with our acharyas, with the mood, and with the Lord's blessings. And that will be the best for that person. And ultimately pray for that person who is asking for advice. So prayers are very powerful. When you pray for somebody, that seeker, before you start giving advice, that seeker may understand what's the issue and will be able to resolve of his own also when you start praying. And we see so many times such an experience when we are caught up with so many issues and we are being troubled, but when we are reading through the Srila Prabhupada's purport, we feel like those words are exactly hitting at you. Those words are exactly crafted, perfect for your own situation. So many times devotees have that experience that these words, this advice what Prabhupada is writing here in purport are exactly meant for me in this situation. And sometimes we come for a Bhagavatam class, sometimes we hear some of the recordings of Srila Prabhupada or Guru or senior devotees, or sometimes when we come to the temple and see the exchanges, all these exchanges and words, sometimes we feel they are just sent by Krishna to you to resolve what the issue we are actually facing. How that can happen? Actually, this is maybe because somebody is praying for us. And praying for us to Krishna, and Krishna as a super soul, he guides us to come across that advice which we most needed, right? So prayers can work amazingly. So what we discussed in the art of giving advice is very important. Even Lord Shri Krishna actually takes advice from Uddhava. Art of giving advice means actually timing, trust, and tact. Timing means when to give the advice, when it is asked for, and when you have a expertise or when you are authority for it. Trust. Building a trust is very important. So building a trust before giving the advice is give your own account, give your own example for inspiration to build that trust. Empathy can win the trust. There is a concept of emotional bank account which can win over the trust, and then the trust can be, with that trust, the advice can be absorbed. And we discuss about the tact or the considerations for giving advice is time, place, and circumstances. We discuss about Narad Muli's counseling group and having a art of listening that will actually help actually to carve out the best advice. And out of genuine concern, like we see Prahlad Maharaj, out of compassion, he was instructing to his classmates, even when it is not asked for. And Prabhupada says we should adopt the same mood, the mood while preaching, that this compassion flowing through the Acharya, Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, we are just an instrument in their hands. And our advice should have the reciting scriptures and have a prayers so that the super soul can actually guide that person. So thank you all very much for your kind attentions. There could be limitations about how this art of advice should be, discussed. But I have my own limitation, thinking power, and lack of realization. So this discussion may not be very comprehensive, but it can cover some different facets about giving advice. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai.